Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 764. My name is Eric Nelson, and with me today, my regular co-host, Bob Plankers.
Hey.
Today is Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We are at VMUG Connect in Minneapolis. Sunny, actually, I haven't been outside. I think it's sunny Minneapolis, and having a good time. Lots of people floating around here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We're doing the code labs here.
Yeah,
and,
we're sitting in it right now.
Yeah,
in fact,
and I've just learned a lot about AI, right? You know, like a lot of guys, interesting community guys come up and always teach me so much, right?
Yeah.
Because, like I don't work every day out in the field, and a lot of these guys have been deploying GPUs and doing AI workloads.
They're actually out there doing it,
and
they've got interesting comments about how to do it and what are you guys thinking and all that stuff. It's been some real good conversations.
Right, and I've had a lot of fun. I'll talk a little bit more about that. In the news, the only thing I would say is it's a Toronto Connect is coming up as well.
Yep.
And, they have a couple hundred people here in Minneapolis and a lot of great vendors, Intel, AWS, and our friends from Com Division have a booth here.
Valley
and
Cyber,
yeah,
there's A10 here. AWS for VMware is here, even Zerto, all kinds of people. It's good to see.
So a good vendor representative here, nice area, good food, and a lot of people hung out at the pub. They gave us gift cards to
Intel
drink.
sponsored some my beer drinking last night, and that was all right. I appreciate you, Intel.
So good news, and of course we've seen the VMUG guys, Brad Tompkins, and the whole team is here.
All the leaders.
The leaders are here, and so good time, and the keynotes was good.
Peter Neer this morning, one of our field CTOs, and then Chris McCain, who talks ad nauseum. You probably have seen Chris. Chris is such a great speaker about security and vDefend and just protecting your stuff, and so he does a really good job. And he doesn't use PowerPoint either, and I've always really enjoyed him just ad-libbing. Well, it's not really, it's rehearsed at this point, but being able to talk off the cuff, just drawing on the screen, and so that was cool.
Yeah. And the Connect, it feels like a 2.5-day show, right? We had yesterday afternoon, we had leaders training in the morning. So if you're a VMUG leader, they get training on how to run a VMUG. And then in the afternoon, there were pre-sessions, birds of a feather type conversation sessions. And I know you were in one of those.
Yeah, Chris McCain and I did one. It was just sort of an AMA. Security ones are always interesting because everyone just kind of sits there and looks at each other, and then we just started asking them questions and prodding them a little bit, and people loosened up. Nobody wants to talk about security because they're afraid they're going to look dumb or imply that their company is not being secure. But it turns out we all have the same questions, and so so it's all right. No, that was good. It ended up being 2 hours of all sorts of discussion. We got into NSX. Francois Tellet is here from the technical marketing team, which I'm on, and he's one of our NSX experts. And so he stepped in and talked at length about that sort of stuff and VPCs and and just even some techniques just for building confidence in some of these new technologies. And so that was cool, just hearing people talk about how do you get started with some of this stuff, and you and I have talked about that. You talk about that with AI. How do you get started with this stuff? Well, you just don't bite off all of it all at once, like NSX, for example. You can set up a VPC without endangering anything else, and then you play with it and you try it out. So.
Yeah, and we, they've got the certification labs going, right? They have HOL, certification tests, and HOL labs going as well. So people are dropping in and getting trained as always. So, nice conference. Reminds me of St. Louis last year, right?
Yeah.
Clean environment to come to, and then they got the Toronto one that I'm looking forward to in early May, right? So that one's coming up.
I won't be at that one, but though your efforts to get me to drive up are causing me to think about it a little bit, but it might be.
I know you're a glutton for driving, right? So,
I don't mind driving, to be completely honest with you. It's quiet time. Well, it's not really quiet, but just alone time in a vehicle and that. But
I don't know. You're here, so
I am here. I did drive up 4 hours from the Madison.
I appreciate you driving up,
That's my
there we
home
are.
turf.
Right. So, no big announcements. I hear 9.1 and
Yeah, there's
9.2.
rumors about that.
There's rumors. No one's saying anything yet. So it's. But there's stuff coming down the pipeline. A couple of people have talked to me about exciting stuff and storage and other things like that.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in the pipeline, and it'll be nice when we can talk about it fully. And we had that blog post a while ago about we don't have update releases anymore. We've got 9.1, 9.0, 9.1, 9.2. So 9.1 will be like update 1 and that sort of thing. And updates always came with interesting stuff in them. 9.1 will be the same when it ships. And so, but we don't have, we don't talk about dates and times and stuff because things slip and things change and we discover stuff and whatever,
Sure. Well, not only that, but Explorer's going to come up in
Explorer's going to come up,
that's where a lot of the big stuff gets talked about, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that'll
come,
and then
what do we save for Explore versus what do we talk about now?
Right.
And so
and VMUGs for me are about implementation, right? Like this is where you talk about what you're doing now, right? And what problems you're having now, so other people like a Bob can help you, right?
I got into a protracted conversation in the hall with another Bob, a Robert, he's a practitioner and he's having problems with his network interfaces. Turns out it was some weird problem I spent like a few weeks messing around with about a month and a half ago, and it turns out it's probably the same thing. And how would he have known? He just happened to make an offhand remark in one of the AMA sessions, and John Nicholson and I looked at him, and then we went and talked to him out in the hall. And the hallway track at conferences is always the most interesting, in my opinion. And so I'm mailing him my notes from fixing it in my own environment. And we're going to see if that fixes his big environment too. So, how would you have known? So.
Yeah, I like the geeking out with friends and just being amongst sets of people like me.
Yeah.
Right.
Nerds that are like us.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That are running IT. Right. Running IT. Like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my summation of the conference so far. I know we had a nice mixer last night. Tonight we're going somewhere else. I haven't paid attention to the agenda to know what we're doing. Usually they go to a baseball or they do something. So,
I don't know actually.
There's usually a walk involved.
Yeah, I can't tell you what the plan is.
Freezing cold North Midwest Bob area. Right?
Us.
I'm a California flower.
You've got nice weather out there, and it's surprising how fast you get acclimated to nice weather.
All right, so a couple of key takeaways of doing the code labs, right? Here's my number one takeaways. Well, the code lab, we're running LLMs, right? So we got GPUs now, and
your GPUs are pretty cool.
Yeah, and we can run LLMs even on the GMK Tech, which is a smaller machine, but does have a GPU CPU combo and from AMD that can run and run workloads. And we got to run it on vSphere 9 and run an ESX there. And we get the Llama runs the workload Llama 3. So we're running a Llama 3 engine. We got a Llama 4 that's like a 85 gig model, but the Llama 3 is like 5 gig model. So easy to run when you have a lab environment. Nice chatbot. But we ask it, who am I, right? That's one of the things. We're like, who's Bob Plankers, right? Who's Eric Nilsson? And it gave, I've done that about a half a year ago, and you get like, okay, Eric Nilsson works at VMware, runs community stuff, blah blah blah. This time you do it, and like, man, it's a longer resume,
really,
right? Nice long.
I don't know.
Resume.
Is that scary or is that cool?
Right.
I don't know.
What I would say is that you don't need Wikipedia anymore. You need LLM training.
And that's
for
one of the
resume.
Complaints about bloggers is that AIs and all that stuff are usurping a lot of their traffic because they're just able to answer this stuff. And so I don't know. That's
we did hear from ComDivision.
Eve?
Eve.
Yeah.
And Eve said, that, one of the things that the AIs are struggling with now is getting blocked out from different services, right? They're not, being told, no, you can't harvest data from YouTube. You can't harvest data from XYZ. And
it's funny because
they're ending up at Reddit.
Yeah. I tell my agents, I'm like, you're one of the smartest things on the planet. Figure out how to change your user agent. and I actually had an LLM write a little Python script to change its user agent to download stuff. So not that I would ever violate any rules or anything like that, but just saying.
So, and then a couple other things I learned is when you're running the models, you can pass in -- verbose, and you can get all the token usage on the server, right? So it's kind of interesting to run and see the data for the engine, right? Like, because I'm just used to using ChatGPT as a client, as a user, right? And not seeing the back end model loads, token utilization, millisecond time, microsecond time of queries running through the model, neural network. It's pretty interesting.
Well, then being able to take all those stats, like that's something that VCF operations with the private AI services, and that all of that stuff that was announced at Explore and will be shipping as part of the upcoming releases here. A lot of that stuff, we were able to see all those stats and pull them into VCF operations, for example, monitor them, and all the sort of stuff that taking it from messing around with it to actually building a business using it, so.
Yeah, so that was one of my takeaways around AI is one that the models you're downloading know about you. It's got the full set of everything since 2024, right? Which is great. It remembered that I had done a code session in 2016 at reInvent, right? It just knows a lot of stuff. And somebody came by that had been to reInvent and had done the Raspberry Pi code sessions, and he was like, "Oh my God!" He sat through this session to he had never run a LLM before. Right?
Oh wow!
So, spun him up a VM on a little guy, and what I learned is don't unplug your server. Don't kick the cord out while you're.
That's right. You mentioned that. I asked you if everything's going smoothly, and you said that you accidentally unplugged everything.
Yeah, no, just the
ESXi server. You're right.
Yeah, that's by design. That was a feature. See how long it took everything to come back.
Yeah, resilience testing.
The next thing I learned is DNS is your friend, right? DNS is really important, right? Like you got to get your DNS, waterfall DNS to happen right.
Yep.
We didn't have an internet drop here, and yet we're pulling down llama models and that, so we didn't have a internet drop. So if you don't have an internet drop for your code Wi-Fi and you want to run vCenter server with the resolve correctly, you got to have your own DNS. But we want to have internet. So how do you get internet, Bob?
Well,
if you didn't pay for an internet drop at the conference, what do you got to do?
Well, can you rebroadcast the Wi-Fi or route the Wi-Fi? Maybe you use your cell phone.
That's right. You use your Mac
you pull out your Ubiquiti, your unified travel router or something like that.
Luckily, I had a USB-C to hardline, dongle. Then you just you get on Wi-Fi and you turn your Mac into a router, and then you route forward everything. Everything. Running on that.
All of that stuff that we do to screw around, once in a while, you end up needing it for real things.
Right? Get your DNS. And then the next thing you got to do is, if you didn't pay for a power drop, right? What's your solution if you don't pay for a power drop for your booth?
Run over to Home Depot and get a
that's right. You get a kilowatt, $400, a Jackery or
whatever. You could do that. You could get a battery or something like that, or you just get a long extension cord.
You just get a nice lithium battery pack, chargeable. It has a little display on it. You get a kilowatt on it for like $400. You plug it in, and those guys run. They got like a 1500 inverter on it. 50-watt inverter, so it'll run the whole booth, right? Not that I'm knowing anybody that did that, but maybe. Right? Not me. We have power, but there are some other people that we're looking around, going, "Hey, we didn't pay for power drop. Do we have to pay for that?"
It's kind of wild what you have to pay for at a conference.
And then chairs. Chairs. You got to pay for chairs. We had guys coming to our code labs and grabbing chairs. And
I saw somebody
around, right?
Ganked one of your chairs, and I was like, "Hey, you need to put that back, man."
We didn't say that. I let them do it because it's like, I've been there. But I want to sit down. And
we can go steal a chair back.
We got extra chairs here. We're good.
I'm not above stealing chairs back. So.
But so it's been a fun show, and watching the tokens on all our LLMs has been interesting to see those run, and then watching CPU utilization. So I kind of got a sense of with the mini-form GPUs, which are $800 small GPU
Yeah, they're the
from
RTX
NVIDIA.
2000s or whatever. And then
It takes about half a gig of memory per user instance
Okay.
running, the LLM, right? So
in the GPU itself.
in the GPU itself, right?
Yep.
So if you get a 16 gig GPU memory on the GPU,
Yep.
you can just do the math and go, well, maybe you get
so you got 32
but the model
people.
has to sit in that memory too. So
so maybe you've got 30 people, 28 people.
No, you get 10.
10? Oh, okay.
10.
Oh, maybe
10.
I did.
Yeah, because there's a lot of usage of memory.
Oh, okay. Math hard.
Yeah.
How much did you say it takes?
500 meg or half a gig.
But then there's some overhead
memory,
and stuff.
then there's but yeah, the GPU has to do other things besides just manage each user, and so I think there's overhead in that. And then if you're running vGPU, right?
Yeah.
Then there's another 20% tax on that.
Okay.
Right? So because you're managing
there's a
virtual
minimum
GPUs,
amount of RAM you have to spend to buy in for a workload.
which is why
so,
RAM's expensive. Right?
Wow.
Because,
oh my goodness. Yeah.
Because if it's a half a gig of RAM per user, and Facebook has like a billion users, you can do the math on how much memory they need to deploy in order to run their models. And then I'm laughing because I'm just watching my tokens, and I'm like, how many times I use ChatGPT to just ask another question, ask another question. Like, these guys are putting servers in. No wonder why they're building server farms. Right?
Yeah. Well, no wonder why we have a shortage of
memory.
Well, everything.
Yeah, everything. Everything.
Yeah, we've been talking about memory shortages, and memory tiering is a hot topic here because of that. The idea that, even NAND flash, basically SSDs, NVMe devices, and that have gone up in price. But so it's like $1 a gig for an enterprise flash device versus $25 a gig for enterprise for RAM.
Yeah.
And so memory tiering looks really attractive to a lot of organizations and a lot of folks. A lot of questions about it. If you're not familiar with it, memory tiering is the thing that it's not like RAM doubler or anything like that from back in the day. It basically adds, there's no compression or anything like that. ESX can do compression if there's memory pressure, but it's that's sort of a last resort thing. The memory tiering basically takes an NVMe device and adds it to the pool of memory, and then memory tiering it watches to see what it starts classifying pages: hot, warm, cold, really cold, and then the cold stuff starts falling out into the NVMe device itself. And so it's a way to stretch memory. It's a way to, be able to preserve the fast memory for workloads that are using it, and the workload doesn't even know what's happening. And so you can run, I've got a VM, I love joking about Windows 3.1. I've got a Windows 3.1 VM that I run on my VCF 9 instances. And Windows 3.1 doesn't even know it's being tiered. It's got no idea that it's encrypted on disk. It just happens courtesy of the infrastructure. So.
Yeah, and then great sessions. People would go to the sessions and spending time, engaging with people. I've heard great conversations about that as well. So
a lot of good questions.
Spending time engaging and teaching stuff and sharing, right? So like that. We got the Raspberry Pi 5s here, and speaking about pricing, like I bought the Raspberry Pi 5 kits for $100.
Mm-hmm.
I went and looked now; they're $200.
Oh, doesn't surprise me.
It's like next thing you know, so I'm thinking people are telling me they're going to put their memory up on eBay, right?
Yeah, well, I've got
their extra memory,
a few terabytes of RAM in my home lab machines or whatever that if I knew when it would come back down again so that I could rebuy it. My problem is I just want to use it in the meantime. But
so we've got a couple more labs to do. We're running them today and tomorrow, right? So
both of my sessions that I'm talking about security and memory tiering. Dave Morera couldn't be here. He's our normal memory tiering guy, and he couldn't be here this week. So I am talking about memory tiering, which is fine. I enjoy the topic. It's a cool topic. But.
Now, interesting, the labs I did at Explore, right, that was just running VCF 9 on small hardware, was busier and more popular than an AI lab. Now, I would have
Yeah.
thought it would have been the other way around. I would have thought that AI would have attracted people and they'd all come in to learn about GPU and running llamas and running the models, but not really. No, it's completely the opposite. You talk VCF9 on sub $1,000 machines, and everybody's coming to check that out.
Yep.
Right?
Well, I think, well, and even just, lab environments are hard, even for corporate environments.
Right.
And then, so being able to do a lab environment and being able to
And that's what I
see
learned
this
about
stuff. Yeah,
GPUs are expensive.
they are.
So I don't think, you know how we talked about these mini forms
Yeah.
versus workstations,
Yeah.
towers,
Yeah. You and I have
right?
gone back and forth about that a little bit.
Well, for GPU, for AI workloads, just get a tower. It is trying to fit these GPUs and buy these little expensive GPUs and fit them in a little tiny form factor and keep them cool. Now when you're talking, some of these little tiny GPUs, the L1s that fit in that, they're charging a premium, $3,000, $4,000.
Yeah.
For, I can buy the old 3090 or and now I don't know what they're
5090s and stuff like that. Right, they're a little pricey.
You can
5090
get those,
is $2,000 now or something
right,
like that.
But that's what I'm saying. You can get a 5090 and put it in just a regular PCIe slot in a tower, and you're in business. Put VCF on it, and the way you go, right? Where buying one of these little L1s GPUs, good luck. $4,000. I saw one for $4,000.
Oh wow!
I'm like,
no, thank you.
Okay. And then if you want to do vMotion and have vGPU, then you're in it for $8,000.
Yeah,
right? Then plus the little mini forms, all that, you're to $11,000.
Yeah, that's pretty deep, pretty steep for a home lab that you want to mess around with.
And one of the guys, it's funny because when you get doing it, you're excited, you're building, screwing the hardware. Then you get up and you get the LMs running, and you're like, okay, and then you do the dashes so you can see all the data and all that. But at some point, you hit that moment where you go, okay, now what am I going to do?
Yeah, now
what? Now what?
Yeah.
The one guy's like, maybe I'll just sell it on eBay, right? And I said, hold on to your machines. You're going to need them later. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I've to that end, I've reached that point. You try something. I'm not somebody who learns just just to learn something. I actually want a project to do in order to learn how to do something. And so some of my AI stuff recently has been using the Whisper model. The Whisper, if you're not familiar with it, it's the transcription model that you can take a video or whatever and had Claude Code help me basically write. Who am I joking? Help me! It did it itself. The hey Claude, I want to take this giant. I've got 3 terabytes of videos, and I want to rip the audio track out of each one of them and feed it to Whisper, and that's running on these 5 VMs basically that I've got, or these 5 machines, these 5 IPs, and it did it. 3 weeks later, I had a giant pile of transcriptions, and that I could feed it and make a knowledge base out of it. So that's been my project lately, is transcriptions like that. And so
my projects have been GPUs and LLMs, right? And how to get all that running, and using AI the whole time to do it, right? And we were just talking about that today. How much you could argue that we're dumber because we but
that's
you
argument.
could also argue that we're smarter because there were just things before that. If somebody asked me the specs of the GPU, blah, 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 I'd be like, well, I don't know. I just don't know. You have to go look it up, right? Yeah. But now everything, I just spend time asking it questions, ask questions. I learn it, I know it. And I feel like I'm way smarter because I've just, everything that I need to know, I can just go get the answer to.
Well, and where I don't necessarily feel smarter, but it's helping, these models and these tools are helping me get things done that I would have never done before. And either because I didn't have time or the skill set or whatever. And so that's cool. But I also feel, so as an old infrastructure guy, I worry about dependencies. And now I've got a dependency on a machine somewhere, and to be able to maintain this stuff that it's helped me build and things. And so I worry about that a little bit, but at the same time, I just got 3 terabytes of videos ripped down and transcribed, and so that's something that I've only dreamed of being able to do in the past. And so, That's cool. Right, like right now, I'm vibe coding it's probably running right now on one of my home machines. The vibe coding a member management system for the nonprofit that I work with.
Right.
You know, and yeah.
So what
Anyhow.
we did talk to some IT practitioners here about their careers, right, and
Yeah.
where they feel their careers are going, and the consensus is that AI is not putting them out of business.
No.
AI is allowing them to stress on information less, right? They're getting their answers quicker.
Yeah.
So it used to be when I'd have a problem, I'd spend all day trying to grind through it, and maybe 2 or 3 days trying to grind through, get the right answer, get the right configuration, and fix whatever was broken. Most people are now like, nope, I use AI now and I get it fixed in an hour or two, and I'm less stressed, right? So a little bit better for making the career nicer.
Yeah. Hey, we got 17 people on. We've got Jungle Motorsports. I don't remember. Is that Aaron? Is that you? The hello from the upstairs VCF upgrade session. The that's funny. They're watching us in a session upstairs.
Nice,
so you should pay attention, Aaron.
Yeah,
not to us, but
you know. I think we're getting more and more popular because we had like 25 people watching the other day too.
Excellent.
And I got to say, this is back to the community podcast of old.
Yeah.
Back when John Troyer did it, he'd have like 15 people watching.
And on the phone bridge and stuff like that. I remember dialing into the
phone bridge, and they'd have 25 people watching in real time. And then, John left, and it went down to 0, 2, 3, But in the last year or two, we've seen more people watching. I think YouTube manages to do a little bit better notification.
Well, now that, I know we've got good stuff here, and I need to talk to you about maybe doing this on some of the other channels that we've got for the VMware products. But it's been
put other places.
Yeah.
The StreamYard allows us to broadcast in any channel we want to connect to it. Yeah, and a lot of vCenter server consoles up on the Code Labs, right? We got them all over the place now.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Here, I'm going to look at the. I want to look at the session list here. So.
Yeah, the other thing that I've noticed is that students are spinning up VMs, templatized Ubuntu with LLMA in it, and then they come in and they can just deploy from a template, which is kind of fun, just to have templates all set up and configured with different options and system control, creating the server spin up is nice in Ubuntu, and then snapshotting all that, putting in a template, and then just letting people deploy from vCenter server, and when people look over at this little tiny machine and realize the whole lab environments are on on VCF 9 on this little tiny guy, they're like, oh my gosh.
I don't know if we can see it from, it's kind of behind you, but
I'll probably pull it and unplug it again.
So it's just kind of,
this is it, just a
tiny little thing behind the Eric here.
Little guy
running the whole lab,
running VMs with OLEMs on it because it's got a GPU embedded right on the GPU CPU combo with high speed memory. So really neat.
Yeah, no.
The other thing I learned
AMD based, right?
Yeah, AMD.
AMD. They've got really nice unified memory models.
Nice little guy. The other thing I learned is that memory is key, baby. For the LLMs, you just got to have memory.
Yep. Well, that's what's killing the world right now, too, unfortunately.
And we watch our performance dashboard on vCenter server, and you can just see, and then little warnings come up on vCenter server: memory starved, right? Because we got 5 people or 6 people running a GPU at the same time while it's running vCenter server. And I put ops on it as well, so I've got the thing overloaded. Yeah, of course.
Hey, whatever.
But it hasn't heated up. It hasn't melted yet.
You got the equipment to use it, right?
Right.
In fact, I was recounting that I used to have a chief operating officer that told me that once. He's like, Bob, when you go talk to the security people, tell them that we bought these computers to use them. And so I thought that was funny.
That's good.
Yeah.
What do you got in the session list?
So session list, we've had interesting things. We had navigating the new frontier of SSL and TLS this morning. I had not seen that one. That would have been interesting. I
got an SSL home lab question for you, as long as you're I don't want to distract you too much. But like all of these home labs that I'm doing, these little lab servers, I never get SSL working because I don't have a cert for my the machine, right? Is it easy to get a local cert that I can then deploy so that these things stop giving me little please
So you could create your own certificate authority if you wanted to. It's actually pretty straightforward.
On a little VM, just create
on
a
a VM, or just basically if you've got OpenSSL somewhere, you can create a certificate authority for yourself and just sign. And this is what I do for my lab stuff is, well, actually more than my lab stuff at this point is, so you can take that certificate authority root CA cert and just install it everywhere, and then you don't get the warnings.
So you put it on every client, like every Raspberry Pi 5
yeah,
client?
you just
go
and you can just put up a web page basically.
Right.
You could also just do it with the VMCA. So the VMCA is so on vCenter server itself, there's a little certificate authority.
So I can run a certificate authority on my VCSA.
It's running already.
It's ready. I just have to add a...
Yeah, and so if you go to the main page, basically before the login, so we're looking at this, like ESX. If you go to vCenter or whatever, there's a
I got vCenter.
There's a little thing that will show you how to, or it's a link that says download the root CA cert. You can just download that, and we could actually set that up so that you can sign things and that too. So that might be an option.
I need to get signed, because all the little Raspberry Pi browsers, when you go into vCenter server, you have to accept this is a risky site, because I don't have any kind of certs.
And that's what drives me nuts about TLS and certificates and that. You can have a perfectly secure, an absolutely secure network connection, and have an unsigned certificate, an expired certificate, or not an unsigned, but a self-signed certificate, and it can be expired, and your network is still fully encrypted in that. It's just a trust thing, and so these certificates, all this public key encryption and all that stuff, conflate trust with security. And and I like to joke, like, Let's Encrypt, for example. Let's Encrypt is not named Let's Trust. It's named Let's Encrypt, and
it's just encrypting.
Yeah, because the bad guys get certificates from Let's Encrypt too. So
not that this is kind of off topic, but
we've drifted afield here. Yes.
I was watching a YouTube podcast on the guys that hacked the compression algorithm a few years ago, where in Linux they went in zip, and there was a zip and they hacked it into the project. They sneakily got into
or whatever.
That was fascinating, because multi-layer,
playing a long game.
Long game, and it was state actors for sure. They were doing it, and they even spoofed their IP so it looked like they were coming from China, but really they weren't, because it was fascinating how much work they did to break that.
They preyed on the project's need for maintainers, basically. All of these projects, they get to a point, any project, any volunteer operation. So I work with a nonprofit.
And just so you guys know, the intention of that hack, that long-term hack, was to get code injected into SSH.
Yeah, basically backdoor SSH.
They did get it in.
Well,
but it never got really deployed.
Well, because one of the developers, one of the SSH guys, noticed a minuscule delay in his connections that should not have been there. And so he started poking at it. And turns out, holy crap, it's a security vulnerability, it's a backdoor that's been installed by somebody. And then he just starts, did you ever read Clifford Stoll's book, The Cuckoo's Egg?
No.
Back in the day, like a long time ago, Cliff Stoll, he worked, I think, for Berkeley and UC Berkeley, and he was the administrator of like one of their VAXs or something. Same sort of thing. There was a minor accounting error. And in tracking down this minor accounting error that many other people would just say, they'd wave their hands, whatever, 100 millisecond problem.
It was a 400 millisecond.
400 millisecond. That's decent.
But I wouldn't have noticed that.
Yeah, I don't know.
On login, there was like our service startup. There was a little bit longer to get through it.
And and so this just reminds me of that. The Cuckoo's Egg is what the book is called, basically. Clifford Stoll ends up tracing these things back to some sort of international, I don't want to call it international spy ring, but hackers that are moving through early computer networks and stuff like that, and all this. And it's a fairly quick read. It's pretty good if you end up at a half-price books or something like that. You can find copies of it. I don't think it's in print anymore. Clifford Stoll himself actually makes Klein bottles now. He retired from UC Berkeley and makes Klein bottles, which are a topological oddity. Basically, there's no outside.
There's no
big
outside
round thing with a with a thing inside of it or whatever. And he's got a little remote controlled droid that he stores them under his house, and he's got a remote controlled droid that goes and grabs them and gets them out when he needs to ship one.
Interesting.
So anyhow.
Back to the SSL session
We're,
today
again,
on
far afield. So the
security.
SSL session, so that's interesting, and we're trying to make that easier in VCF, but it's still a pain in the rear, like all of these things, and it's a compliance thing. But AIs, LLMs, GPUs, vDefend firewall getting started. Oh, those are some of the labs. Containerized Power CLI scripts. Power CLI has gotten just better and better, and that's really cool. The models, I know there were a lot of complaints. I mentioned I was at the Wichita. I went down. Russ Hamker invited me down for the Wichita VMUG in December to talk, and I happened to mention LLMs are all right at coding PowerShell, and like the entire room rose up to smite me, like absolutely not, they suck. They've gotten better, and so.
I would say just like they learned more and more about me, and the answers were more in depth and better. They're just constantly moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, while I'm looking, I'll look at Wednesday today here. Did you see the announcements? There are a couple of announcements. Oh, there's an announcement Monday that Anthropic is buying a whole bunch of TPUs from the hardware divisions of Broadcom. But then Tuesday, there was an announcement that we're one of their partners for their new scary AI, Mythos or whatever. So which is kind of interesting. They've got this new model, and they've some stuff about it leaked a few weeks back or whatever. Not sure if that was intentional or not, what the deal was, but it's called Mythos, and they've said that they're a little afraid of it because of its security capabilities, and so what they're giving in models like that can be used offensively or defensively, and so they're actually giving it to the defenders first, and so there's a whole bunch of partners. We're one of them. Critical infrastructure software makers, and so we will be able to use it. I don't have all the details yet, but ostensibly we will be able to use it to analyze some of our own code. Not that we will find anything. All of our code is absolutely perfect at all times, right? But I think that's really interesting, that being in some of the forefront of that sort of thing. But
neat.
Yeah. Let's see. We got more Chris McCain. Chris is great talker.
He came by. He's fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Some of the guys, like we were talking the other day that some of the old guys that have been here for like 15 years, there's less and less. So when you run into them, it's like, you want to give them a big bear hug or something, right? Because it's like, and I didn't even really like him that much when back 20 years ago. But
GPUs and stuff with you, getting started with VCF 9, upgrade paths, architecture, what to expect, some career stuff. That's actually one of the interesting things about VMUGs is also, we end up talking about people and process things as much as we do technology. And like one of the first questions in the security AMA thing that Chris McCain and I did yesterday was, how do I get my security people to stop asking idiotic questions? And that just powered basically 20 minutes of discussion, like what are the questions they're asking, like, can you work with them? Like, is it a battling business unit? Like, how does this work? And we ended up talking about the move, and Peter Neer for the keynote this morning was also talking about this, the idea that organizations need to get out of these silo modes and start talking about platform teams, like people that have specializations in network and identity and virtualization and Kubernetes and AI and all that stuff, and come together and form either a meta team or just some other a platform team that transcends the silos, that transcends those boundaries to get this stuff done. The stuff is too large for any single person anymore, and it's just kind of wild. But let's see. Eric Sloof is here. We had Eric on the show a few weeks back or whatever. We've had the comm division people on the show. That was fun. And but troubleshooting, Francois is talking about simplifying network for VI admins, adopting VCF VPCs through vCenter. NSX is just kind of melting down into the infrastructure itself and just becoming part of, and you can see that in 9 where you don't have to deploy edges anymore. The taps can actually be embedded right in ESX, and so just less components to worry about and more integration. It's good stuff.
Eric Sloop was here. He's taking his VCAP, 2 of his last VCAPs.
That's right.
And I told
He's
him,
an
hey,
animal.
great, he can go, apply for his VCDX. Get through all your VCAPs and you're ready to go. He came on to talk about VCDX changes to the program, and one of his recommendations is go take all your VCAPs. Once you get your VCAPs, then you're ready to apply. So he's doing his last 2. So
no, that's cool.
Good for him.
Yeah, I should do those. I put off doing those, and people have asked me many times, like if I'd ever do a VCDX. I'm not opposed to VCDX. I've just never really needed it.
We also recognize that we've had this conversation a couple times this show that some people aren't intellectual learners; they're doer learners.
I'm more of a doer learner.
I'm a home lab guy. I like to do things and learn as I go, and we understand that. And even requiring a VCP certification for the Advantage licenses is a stretch, and we've been trying to make some changes there. We're not ready to announce anything yet, but. We understand there's different learners, so you don't feel bad that you don't have any certifications.
I'm not loved. Oh,
hey, I'm VCP certified.
Me too. Actually,
current,
right? I've got my Oddly enough, I'm current. We've got some comments coming in. Sorry, I'm getting old. My bifocals. I gotta go look at it here. I attended your compliance and security talk a couple of days ago. A VMware guy, a Broadcom guy. Will Google's compression tech not help the turbo quant stuff? So that's an interesting question. So did you see the news from Google about their ability to compress models?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about that, and the models now on your phone, right? And the memory, that this is going to make it more potential. And a couple of people brought that up around here on the 32 gig GTK tech. All right, machine only has 32 gig, and that we're running the standard model that pulls about 4 gig per user, and then maybe we just go get you can quantize it, and so that's one of the. If you're not familiar, quantization is something you'll see people complain about that with the frontier models too, when they complain that Claude is getting dumber in the afternoons. And that's funny. I haven't heard that one. Yeah, no. Claude's getting dumber in the afternoons. Well, when the load goes up, you need to be able to support. Siesta. Yeah, don't we all? I'm a nap appreciator, and so you quantize. The term is quantization. Quantize. You basically dumb the model down a little bit and make it, it's measured in floating point, basically, from 32-bit to 8-bit, into 4-bit to 2-bit. And the model gets smaller so you can fit it into more places, but it also kind of gets dumber in the process too. And it's like burning neurons out of a human, like you just, there's a certain point where, and so there's a balance there. You could fit models in, or make them go faster, fit more load, you have more usage of them in the memory that you've got if you quantize them. But again, the complaint that Claude gets dumber, well, ChatGPT gets dumber, like all these things get dumber. I get kicked out. So I get you've exceeded your free token. I refuse to buy things, and so But now I'm just going to run my own. That's the thing. I'm just going to run it. I'm actually thinking. So when Apple announces their new M5 based Studio Max or whatever, that you can have like a terabyte of RAM. Are they expensive? Yes, but I would be able to run like frontier class models on my desk, and when he says frontier models, I had to ask him what that meant, and he said those are cutting edge. Yeah, the cutting edge stuff. Cutting edge models. Frontier models, state of the art. You'll see SOTA, SOTA. State-of-the-art models, frontier models, and generally people are talking about the Claudes, the Claude Opuses, and this Mythos thing from Anthropic, GPT 5.4, all of that stuff. And but there's local versions too. Kimi K 2.5. You can do that. Some of the Quen models you can get, and you can fit the whole 672 billion parameter model of Quen into one of these freaking little Mac Studios. There you go. You're ready to go. One of the things that Eric Sloof mentioned was that for the next labs, we need to have it do something. And he
Okay.
goes, he's got his LLM running on a ESX somewhere, and he connected this to his camera. He points it out the window, and it processes the images all night and gives him timestamps, and then sends him alarms if somebody's outside on the street in a non-appropriate time. Right, and I thought, that
my Wise camera, my $30 Wise camera does that too.
Right.
But
so tying data into that and having it do agentic activities, right, for you, right, is the next step. And we did want to deploy an OpenClaw here while we were here, and we might do that on Thursday, tomorrow.
So, cool.
Get an OpenClaw.
I've actually still not deployed an OpenClaw.
Yeah, I looked at the specs today. It's pretty small.
They are pretty small. They actually fit on.
They don't take a lot of
people
resources.
talk about getting them like a Mac Mini or something like that, and I might do a Mac Mini just because then I can use iMessage, my iPhone and stuff like that. But I never got back to the turbo. I'm just a ball of tangents is what it amounts to.
We're just doing a roundtable podcast.
Yeah, but the TurboQuant thing. The TurboQuant thing is an interesting new compression thing where you can, instead of quantizing the entire model, some of these models too are what's known as mixture of experts. So they've got different layers to them effectively. And so TurboQuant actually allows you to do more selective quantization of things, and allows you to fit models in places that they wouldn't otherwise fit, and not make them as dumb as they would have been if you just quantized the whole thing. So anyhow, but that's something that you can do, like if you deploy a workload inside of private AI services or whatever, like that's techniques and tools that you can use in the workload and for those LLMs as you're deploying them too. So there's a lot of flexibility there. So,
how much time we got, Bob?
I don't know.
It's on the top of the live stream there.
Me and my bifocals here. We've been going for 46 minutes.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
right on time, right? So I know you're going to drive up to Toronto, right? What are you excited for, when we come to Connect, in the next Connect, right?
Like the next Connect, I need to check with my wife about the Toronto thing. And
ask me, Bob.
So, yes.
What am I excited about? Yes, I'm going to Toronto.
Eric.
Yes.
I hear you're going to Toronto.
I am going to Toronto.
So, aside from just being in the wonderful country of Canada, the
tower, the CNN
tower, the CN tower, I've actually
it's
never.
not CNN.
It's a CN tower.
The
is
nerve
my
of
understanding.
Them. The nerve of them.
The nerve of you. You got it wrong. But what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to doing the code labs there, but actually having better GPUs. We're going to upgrade the GPUs again.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we are going to try to get OpenClaw to do something and make the lab do something as opposed to just having it. We used to get sensors, Raspberry Pi sensors. So we thought we could add some sensors and then have the AI pull, have it somehow reach out to the Raspberry Pi OS. So set SSL, so that the AI can log in to the Raspberry Pi you're on, and then pull some sensor data and then do something with it, right?
I think that's cool.
That's cool. That throws back to the old Raspberry Pi days when we'd have sensor. We should have the AI then do something dynamically. Yeah. And you were telling me about how you were doing something dynamically with your AI, and it locked you out of a machine and then said, "Oh, Bob, please help me."
Oh, I was. I've replaced don't tell we've got Salt Stack and all that stuff. There's all these configuration management tools, and sort of there's maybe not the granddaddy of all of them, but maybe the daddy of all of them is something called Puppet. I've been a Puppet user for, I don't know, 15
Everybody
years.
knows Puppet.
Yeah, well, I think,
if you listen to this podcast,
I try not to make assumptions, but Puppet, they got bought out and stuff like that. And, it's a story that many of us know. And there wasn't really support for the Enterprise Linux 10. I'm an Enterprise Linux guy, not really a Debian Ubuntu guy. And there's not support for that. And so I wanted to switch a bunch of my stuff to Rocky Linux 10. And so I just pointed Claude Code at my old Puppet repo and said, hey, you're the sysadmin now. I want you to be, but you can't just do stuff. I want you to have defined scripts for all this stuff. It rewrote it into 23 shell scripts that it just deploys to all my hosts. It SSHs into them and configures them. It did some troubleshooting once in a while.
So you gave it credentials.
It's got root access
Yeah,
to my stuff. It's just kind of a wild experiment, and the machines it's connecting to really aren't that big of a deal. I mean, if it messes everything up, I've actually got a Veeam NFR. The vExperts can get an NFR license from Veeam for backup and replication, and so I'm backing up. I'm using Veeam in my own lab to back up all of the stuff that it's got access to. So, you know, if it nukes everything, then I'll just restore it and tell it don't do that, you know. But it's done a wonderful job. That's actually.
That's neat.
And you can put it in a loop, like some of these harnesses, the harnesses that you call the AI from. You can put them in a loop, so every hour it'll check back, and it'll run a prompt. So you tell it to loop, and then just check in on all the hosts.
Well, that's what I'm excited about in Toronto. Is we're going to add some agentic workflow, some AI, some OpenClaw, so that we're going to do something with these labs as well. So it's not just about running, you know, an LLM.
It's not something that anymore. That seems pointless or whatever. I mean, it's fine to ask. It's not pointless. I shouldn't.
A lot of people have never done it. Several people sitting around have never done it, so it's good.
As a stopping point, that's not something that you don't do this.
You need
just
to have an objective once you get it up and running.
Exactly.
So,
and so
I'm excited about that. Looking forward to being there and a little bit further north. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
Or is it further north? I don't know.
Yeah. Well. Maybe I don't know. Actually, like I don't know the latitudes or whatever there. Yeah. So we're about the 45th parallel here. St. Paul is 45th parallel is a marker in a park, and Paris is also the 45th parallel. You know, we're same northerly thing as Paris and stuff like that. Us Americans don't think about that as often as other people might.
I know it's warmer in Paris because they have the water coming off the, so
you get what we would call lake effect up here. You know,
I see more bearded people up here.
Well, it's cold out, and beards keep your face cozy warm in the winter. So.
I know we're bumping up at the top of the hour. That's what I'm excited about. I don't know what you're excited about other than the drive home.
I'm going to drive home. I got my smoker running. I mentioned that. So my house is being remodeled. It's nearing the end of the remodel, and right before the remodel started and we moved out, I smoked a couple of turkeys. And smoked turkey is terrific. I really like smoked turkey, but they are greasy. And my grease drain had plugged up. And at the end of a smoke, I turn up the heat to burn stuff off.
Get a little fire going?
Get a little fire going. It was about 1,000 degrees inside according to my fireboard. And my neighbors were texting me. I actually left to go pick up my daughter from soccer. And my neighbor's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, what do you mean? And well, a lot of black smoke coming from your house. And my wife texted like, there's something wrong with the grill. And so, I shut it off remotely.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's very clean inside, but I hadn't actually run it since.
You didn't melt off the paint then?
I melted off the smoke seal that I had put around it and that. So I redid all that, and I cleaned it the rest of the way and vacuumed out all the ash. And then I smoked a pork butt the other day. And
I got whole chickens last weekend, and I got jerk sauce. And then I marinated them for 3 days. I cut them down the back.
That's the way to go
underneath and splayed them out flat.
Spatchcock.
Spatchcock the thing, and then jerk sauce. I put in a big bowl and covered it all and let it marinate for like 2 days, and then put it on charcoal. Good. Didn't smoke them, just charcoal and grilled it.
Yep,
that stuff's good.
Yeah, I've been using the marinate. The marination is excellent. I've been using Meat Church out of Texas.
Okay.
They've got this thing called bird baptism. It's like basically a giant pack of salt and various seasonings. And I dissolve it. I clean out a cooler and dissolve it in a cooler worth of water, and then I dunk my turkeys in there and let them sit for a few days. And
there you go.
Oh, good stuff.
Brine away.
So.
Well, hey, it's been great to.
Dude, it's always good to see you in person.
And be at an event. I think this is the second or third time I've ever live streamed from an event, because usually I'm so busy that I just don't
in some of your events
together.
You've gone off in a corner or something.
But it's great to be here and see everybody. So
thanks
for everybody being online, and we'll be back again next week as always, talking about VMware Tech.
Excellent. Thanks, folks. Take care.